This playthrough is rated M for mature.
Hey ladies, you know it's isolated here, no one around. You know what that means, right? Big American Dance Party! Oons, 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 oons. What do you think I meant? Greetings and salutations, viewers. Vauldemare back here with more bonus content in Mass Effect. Time to do the Codex stuff, or at least the rest of the voiced stuff. Yeah, in a previous episode a while back, I did all the secondary stuff. For those who care about that, can watch it. I read it out in that case, but probably could have easily, during the course of the game, could have just skimmed through it like I did with the plants and everything like that. But for those who care about that, now we're going to do the rest of the primary codex, which in this case you won't have to hear me talk, which will be a bonus. And then we'll do like random little tidbits and other quote farming stuff I added, which I'll probably just splice in between bits and pieces. But let's get started as we hear the narrator talk about the council races.
The Asari were the first species to discover the Citadel. When the Solarians arrived, it was the Asari who proposed the establishment of the Citadel Council to maintain peace throughout the galaxy. Since then, the Asari have served as the mediators and centrists of the Council. An all-female race, the Asari reproduce through a form of parthenogenesis. They can attune their nervous system to that of another individual of any gender and of any species to reproduce. This capability has led to the unseemly and inaccurate rumors about Asari promiscuity. Asari can live for over 1,000 years, passing through 3 stages of life. In the maiden stage, they wander restlessly, seeking new knowledge and experience. When the matron stage begins, they meld with interesting partners to produce their offspring. This ends when they reach the matriarch stage, where they assume the roles of leaders and counselors.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, we've heard this over the course of the game. This is just a, kind of a shortened version of like what some of the other characters talk. Well, condensed to an actual, codex reading historical document or whatever. So anyway.
The second species to join the Citadel, the Solarians, are warm-blooded amphibians with a hyperactive metabolism. Solarians think fast, talk fast, and move fast. To Solarians, other species seem sluggish and dull-witted. Unfortunately, their metabolic speed leaves them with a relatively short lifespan. Solarians over the age of 40 are a rarity. The Solarians were responsible for advancing the development of the primitive Krogan species to use as soldiers during the Rachni Wars. They were also behind the creation of the genophage bioweapon the Turians used to quell the Krogan rebellions several centuries later. Solarians are known for their observational capability and non-linear thinking. This manifests as an aptitude for research and espionage. They are constantly experimenting and inventing, and it is generally accepted that they always know more than they are letting on.
Never trust a Solarian. I mean,
Roughly 1,200 years ago, the Turians were invited to join the Citadel Council to fulfill the role of galactic peacekeepers. The Turians have the largest fleet in Citadel space, and they make up the single largest portion of the Council's military forces. As their territory and influence has spread, the Turians have come to rely on the Solarians for military intelligence and the Asari for diplomacy. Despite a somewhat colonial attitude towards the rest of the galaxy, the ruling hierarchy understands they would lose more than they would gain if the other 2 races were ever removed. Turians come from an autocratic society that values discipline and possesses a strong sense of personal and collective honor. There is lingering animosity between Turians and humans over the First Contact War of 2157, which is known as the Relay 314 incident to the Turians. Officially, however, the 2 species are allies, and they enjoy civil, if cool, diplomatic relations.
kind of surprised. Although it was 26 years, so I guess 26 years is enough time for things to cool down, because some people can hold a grudge for a very long time. Anyway, on to the extinct races. It even has a little description on them. Like this one says, the 3 most politically important species in the galaxy. The extinct races, spacefaring species that went extinct thousands of years before the present.
50,000 years ago, the Protheans were the only spacefaring species in the galaxy. They vanished in a swift galactic extinction. Only the legacy of their empire remains. They are believed to have built the mass relays and the Citadel, which have allowed numerous species to explore and expand throughout the galaxy. Prothean ruins are found on worlds across the galaxy. While surprisingly intact for their age, functioning examples of Prothean paleotechnology are rare. Time and generations of looters have picked their dead cities and derelict stations clean. Some believe the Protheans meddled in the evolution of younger races. The Hanar homeworld of Kajay, for example, shows clear evidence of former Prothean occupation. The presence of a former Prothean observation post on Mars has caused a rebirth of interventionary evolutionists among humans. These individuals believe the god myths of ancient civilizations are misremembered encounters with aliens.
Yeah, that's proven to be true, even with this thing on there. There was that one mission where we see ourselves being like as a Homo sapiens or something like that, where I don't remember every single cycle of humanity, like our evolution, so I might be wrong on the Homo sapiens stuff. But we were being watched or whatever. Something like, I guess that Prothean artifact was able to touch into, like, I don't know, genetic memory or something like that. Although I don't know all the details behind it. But anyway, on to the bug people.
Though now extinct, the Rachni once threatened every species in Citadel space. Over 2,000 years ago, explorers foolishly opened a mass relay to a previously unknown system and encountered something never seen before or since, a species of spacefaring insects guided by a hive mind intelligence. Unfortunately, the Rachni were not peaceful, and the galaxy was plunged into a series of conflicts known as the Rachni Wars. Attempts to negotiate were futile, as it was impossible to make contact with the hive queens that guided the race from beneath the surface of their toxic home world. The emergence of the Krogan ended the Rachni Wars. Bred to survive the harshest environments, the Krogan were able to strike at the queens in their lairs and reclaim conquered Council worlds. But when Krogan fleets pressed them back to their homeworld, the Rachni refused to surrender, and the Krogan eradicated them from the galaxy.
I think when we talked to the Rachni Queen, before you save or kill her, depending on which thing, she talked about how all they heard was like chaos or whatever during that time, but she doesn't remember all the details because I guess they pass on their memories from like queen to queen or something like that. You're probably wondering why all of a sudden the race decided to act like that. Well, from those who haven't put the pieces together, it's pretty obvious now. But if you're curious about getting the answer to that, I think you find out about that in the third game. You find out the solution, or not the solution, the answer to that mystery. So, which is kind of nice, but almost wish that we kind of kept it hidden. But I guess for a third game in the series, they wanted to wrap up all the loose ends and everything. So, anyway, on to the non-council races. Spacefaring species without the political power to set galactic policy.
In the early 2160s, the Alliance began aggressive colonization of worlds in the Skyllian Verge, much to the dismay of the Batarians, who had been developing the region for several decades. In 2171, the Batarians petitioned the Council to declare the Verge a zone of Batarian interest. The Council refused, however, declaring unsettled worlds in the region open to human colonization. In protest, the Batarians closed their Citadel embassy and severed official diplomatic relations with the Council, effectively becoming a rogue state. They instigated a proxy war in the Verge by funneling money and weapons to criminal organizations, urging them to strike at human colonies. Hostilities peaked with the Skyllian Blitz of 2176, an attack on the human capital of Elysium by Batarian-funded pirates and slavers. In 2178, the Alliance retaliated with a crushing assault on the moon of Torfin, long used as a staging base by Batarian-backed criminals. In the aftermath, the Batarians retreated into their own systems and are now rarely seen in Citadel space.
Yeah, basically Batarians are basically a race of, like, I mean, for all intents and purposes, race of gangsters, slavers, and pirates for the most part. So it's like a pirate state when you think about it. You could almost think of it as being like some random, like, I'm trying to think like certain countries in Africa that are like, have very little government and pretty much are run by like the local pirate organizations. Like, that's why a lot of boats are afraid to go into like spaces near Trinidad and stuff like that, for fear of being attacked by pirates and stuff like that. That almost kind of what it kind of relates to if you try to give a real world and implication of it, but obviously not the same historical reference. But anyway, on to the Elcor.
The Elcor are a citadel species native to the high-gravity world Dakuna. They are massive creatures, standing on 4 muscular legs for increased stability. Elcor move slowly, an evolved response to an environment where a fall can be lethal. This has colored their psychology, making them deliberate and conservative. Elcor speech is ponderous and monotone. Among themselves, scent, slight movements, and sub-vocalized infrasound convey shades of meaning that make a human smile seem as subtle as a fireworks display. Since their subtlety can lead to misunderstandings with other species, the Elcor often go out of their way to clarify when they are being sarcastic, amused, or angry. Dakuna's high gravity impedes mountain formation. Most of the world consists of flat, open plains, which prehistoric Elcor wandered across in small family bands. Modern Elcor still prefer open sky and can become restless and uncomfortable on long starship journeys.
I think the one thing I like about Mass Effect is not every single race is humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs. Like, okay, technically the Elcor are 2 arms, 2 legs, but they're not the same exact design. Same with like the Hanar, and stuff like that. Like, I know why they do it in certain sci-fi, like especially shows. In books you can do whatever, and in video games you can too. Well, to an extent. Video games you still have to program them, so that's why a lot of people want programmed non-humanoid, because it's easier for either mocap stuff or whatever. But in books you can do whatever, and at least if you try to do something differently in a movie, you better have a pretty decent budget or whatever. But yeah, I like it when they actually try to do stuff different than that. Anyway.
The Geth are a humanoid race of networked AIs. They were created by the Quarians 300 years ago as tools of labor and war. When the Geth showed signs of self-evolution, the Quarians attempted to exterminate them. The Geth won the resulting war. This example has led to legal, systematic repression of artificial intelligences in galactic society. The Geth possess a unique distributed intelligence. An individual has rudimentary animal instincts, but as their numbers and proximity increase, the apparent intelligence of each individual improves. In groups, they can reason, analyze situations, and use tactics, as well as any organic race. Geth space is located at the trailing end of the Perseus Arm, beyond the lawless Terminus systems. The Perseus Veil, an obscuring dark nebula of opaque gas and dust, lies between their space and the Terminus systems.
And of course the Geth obviously represent the typical machine race of any sci-fi, whether it be, the Borg or anything similar to that. I know there's others in the Borg, that's just the first one that comes to mind. Yeah, that's the sad thing, is like with certain stories, you kind of have these certain tropes that come about, like the sci-fi race and and all that. But nothing wrong with that, as long as it's something slightly tweaked about them than the same one, then it's good. Anyway.
The Hanar are a citadel species known for excessive politeness. They speak with scrupulous precision and take offense at improper language. Hanar that expect to deal with other species take special courses to help them unlearn their tendency to take offense at improper speech. All Hanar have 2 names. The face name is known to the world. The soul name is kept for use among close friends and relations. Hanar never refer to themselves in the first person in conversation with someone they know on a face name basis. To do so is considered egotistical, so instead they refer to themselves as this one, or the impersonal it. Their homeworld, Kajay, has 90% ocean cover and orbits an energetic white star, resulting in a permanent blanket of cloud. Due to the presence of Prothean ruins on the world, many Hanar worship them, and Hanar myths often speak of an elder race that civilized them by teaching them language.
Or as Commander Shepard said, they're big, stupid jellyfish. No, like a race of C-3POs, they're too polite. That's kind of funny when you think about it. Oh, I'm sorry that I spilt a pot of coffee on you. I do apologize, something like that. Or they apologize for it getting spilt on them. I'm sorry, your coffee got in the way of my shirt. So.
When the Asari discovered the Citadel, they also discovered the Keepers. a docile, multi-limbed insect race that seemingly exists only to maintain and repair the Great Prothean Station. Early attempts to communicate with or study the Keepers were failures, and it is now illegal to interfere with or impede Keeper activity. Because they are completely non-threatening, Keepers have become virtually invisible to everyone else. Similarly, they seem indifferent to other species, except for their tendency to help new arrivals integrate themselves into the Citadel. No matter how many Keepers die due to old age, violence, or accident, they maintain a constant number. No one has discovered the source of new Keepers, but some hypothesize they are genetic constructs. Biological androids created somewhere deep in the inaccessible core of the Citadel itself.
Or, yeah, after the course of the story, we find out that they either was one of the first races the Reapers indoctrinated, or one of many along the way that they thought they were the most useful, so they kept them keeping the Citadel intact until they could come back. But, leaving it vague until you find out via the story. Whoops, I actually clicked off there. Sorry about that.
The Krogan evolved in a hostile and vicious environment. Until the invention of gunpowder weapons, eaten by predators was still the #1 cause of Krogan fatalities. Afterwards, it was death by gunshot. When the Solarians discovered them, the Krogan were a brutal, primitive species, struggling to survive a self-inflicted nuclear winter. The Solarians culturally uplifted them, teaching them to use and build modern technology, so they could serve as soldiers in the Rachni War. Liberated from the harsh conditions of their homeworld, the quick-breeding Krogan experienced an unprecedented population explosion. They began to colonize nearby worlds. Even though these worlds were already inhabited, the Krogan rebellions lasted nearly a century, only ending when the Turians unleashed the Genophage, a Solarian-developed bioweapon that crushed all Krogan resistance. The Genophage makes only 1 in 1,000 pregnancies viable, and today, the Krogan are a slowly dying breed. Understandably, the Krogan harbor a grudge against all other species, especially the Turians.
Yeah, the race that was lifted up only to be used as soldiers, then when they got a little bit too much chutzpah, they were broken down with a deadly virus to keep them down again like dogs. It's a messed up race, really, when you think about it. You can see why Rex is so pissed off, really, in general. But, yeah.
Driven from their home system by the Geth nearly 3 centuries ago, most Quarians now live aboard the Migrant Fleet, a flotilla of 50,000 vessels ranging in size from passenger shuttles to mobile space stations. Home to 17 million Quarians, the flotilla understandably has scarce resources. Because of this, each Quarian must go on a rite of passage known as the Pilgrimage when they come of age. They leave the fleet and only return once they have found something of value they can bring back to their people. Other species tend to look down on the Quarians for creating the Geth, and for the negative impact their fleet has when it enters a system. This has led to many myths and rumors about the Quarians, including the belief that underneath their clothes and breathing masks, they are actually cybernetic creatures, a combination of organic and synthetic parts.
We know actually we don't know that's a lie, except Tali never told us, and we find out in the 3rd game that that's obviously not true, to an extent anyway. The basic description of the Quarians are vagabonds, tramps, and thieves. I think that's how the song goes. Anyway, at least that's how people view them.
The Volus are a member species of the Citadel with their own embassy, but they are also a client race of the Turians. Centuries ago, they were voluntarily absorbed into the hierarchy, effectively trading their mercantile prowess for Turian military protection. Erun, their homeworld, lies far beyond the normal life zone of its star. However, the world has a high-pressure greenhouse atmosphere that traps enough heat to support an ammonia-based biochemistry. As a result, the Volus must wear pressure suits and breathers when dealing with other species, as conventional nitrogen-oxygen air mixtures are poisonous to them, and in the low-pressure atmospheres tolerable to most species, their flesh will actually split open. Volus culture is tribal, bartering lands and even people to gain status. This culture of exchange inclines them to economic pursuits. It was the Volus who authored the Unified Banking Act, and they continue to monitor and balance the Citadel economy.
So they're basically the banking clan of the universe, for all intents and purposes. They can get you a good deal, maybe, but yeah. It's kind of funny to have a race of aliens that's just subservient because they're like, dude, we don't want to fight. Just we'll hand you your money. It's okay. So I think I already went over the non-sapient races. You know what? I'll do it again for those who maybe missed that little section. So, alien non-sapient creatures, common non-sapient life forms.
After the Geth secure a location, they round up and impale dead and living bodies on mechanical spikes. The spikes rapidly transform these victims into withered husks, extracting water and trace minerals, and replacing them with cybernetics. The cybernetics reanimate the lifeless flesh and tissue, transforming the bodies into mindless killing machines. Some Alliance soldiers refer to the husk-generating spikes as dragon's teeth, a reference to the mythological berserkers who sprang up from the earth wherever the teeth of the dragon Eris were planted. Dragon's teeth and husks bear little resemblance to other pieces of Geth technology. No one is sure why a synthetic race would bother to drain the minuscule amount of recoverable resources from organic corpses, though the value of reusing them as shock troops is obvious.
Yeah, it makes it hard to feel bad for the Geth when they're doing just as bad things to organic people, so.
Thresher maws are subterranean carnivores that spend their entire lives eating, or searching for something to eat. Threshers reproduce via spores that can lie dormant for millennia, yet are robust enough to survive prolonged periods in deep space and atmospheric re-entry. As a result, thresher spores appear on many worlds, spread by previous generations of space travelers. The body of a thresher never entirely leaves the ground. Only the head and tentacles erupt from the earth to attack. In addition to physical attacks, threshers have the ability to project toxic chemicals and emit bursts of infrasound as a shockwave weapon. The Alliance first encountered threshers on the colony of Akuz in 2177. After contact was lost with the Pioneer team, Marine units were deployed to investigate. The shore parties were set upon by hungry threshers, and nearly the entire assault force was killed. Alliance forces recommend engaging threshers with vehicle-mounted heavy weapons.
Yeah, or you can get out on foot and kill them just because of RPG mechanics and everything like that. Or you can also call the Thresher Maws graboids, for all intents and purposes.
Varren are omnivores with a preference for living prey. Originally native to the Krogan homeworld of Tuchanka, they are, like most life from Tuchanka, savage, clannish, and consummate survivors. They are pack hunters when vulnerable prey is readily available, and become scavengers when outnumbered or outclassed. Their supreme adaptability, vicious demeanor, and rapid breeding cycle have made them ubiquitous and dangerous pests on many worlds. Virtually everywhere the Krogan have been, Varren infestations have followed, wreaking havoc with the native ecology. The Krogan have had a love-hate relationship with Varren for millennia, alternately fighting them for territory and embracing them as treasured companions. To this day, Krogan raise them as beasts of war. One of the common subgenus of Varren has metallic silver scales, leading to the rather unusual nickname, fish dogs.
Kind of reminds me of when you call like certain insects, I forgot, like they're a type of millipede or something like that, silverfish or whatever, even though they're not fish. Maybe that's only American version or Midwestern or something like that. Anyway, on to government. Yay! That sounds exciting. A massive space station that serves as the political and economic capital of galactic culture.
The Citadel is an ancient deep space station, presumably constructed by the Protheans. Since the Prothean extinction, numerous species have come to call the Citadel home. It serves as the political, cultural, and financial capital of the galactic community. To represent their interests, most species maintain embassies on the Presidium, the Citadel's inner ring. The Citadel Tower in the center of the Presidium holds the Citadel Council Chambers. Council affairs often have far-reaching effects on the rest of the galactic community. 5 arms, known as the wards, extend from the Presidium. Their inner surfaces have been built into cities, populated by millions of inhabitants from across the galaxy. The Citadel is virtually indestructible. If attacked, the station can close its arms to form a solid, impregnable shell. For as long as the station has existed, an enigmatic race called the Keepers has maintained it.
And obviously we found out that it was used by the Reapers to propagate new civilizations, just to take their technology and destroy the race and move back into their hidey holes. You like some guy, damn Jack in the Box. Anyway.
The Council is an executive committee composed of representatives from the Asari Republics, the Turian Hierarchy, and the Solarian Union. Though they have no official power over the independent governments of other species, the Council's decisions carry great weight throughout the galaxy. No single Council race is strong enough to defy the other two, and all have a vested interest in compromise and cooperation. Each of the Council species has general characteristics associated with the various aspects of governing the galaxy. The Asari are typically seen as diplomats and mediators. The Solarians gather intelligence and information. The Turians provide the bulk of the military and peacekeeping forces. Any species granted an embassy on the Citadel is considered an associate member, bound by the accords of the Citadel Conventions. Associate members may bring issues to the attention of the Council, though they have no input on the decision. The Human Systems Alliance became an associate member of the Citadel in 2165.
The Citadel Council, a group of people that basically do everything and do nothing at all. You know, typical bureaucratic BS, you know, like they get stuff done. That's the weird thing, is that, you know, we think about them through their interaction through the story as Shepard and how they tend to ignore us, you know, only at certain times when it's like right in their face, which kind of represents like a lot of governments. You know, they're always reactive instead of proactive. But the government still works. I mean, stuff still happens. It's kind of like in my country where we complain about them not doing things, and yet our, well, according to like details, I've heard our government is supposed to be like one of the most efficient governments in the world, despite all the crap we hear on TV and everything like that. I mean, now, could it be more efficient, more effective? Yes. It's just comparatively to other, like, governments, it's supposed to be. Now, that was a couple of years ago. I don't know if that's still the same. You know, things change, obviously, and people don't update those surveys every too often. But stuff does get done. We just never see a lot of the minor minutia because of just how we see our lives. So, anyway, thought I'd mention that.
Citadel space is an unofficial term referring to any region of space controlled by a species that acknowledges the authority of the Citadel Council. At first glance, it appears this territory encompasses most of the galaxy. In reality, however, less than 1% of the stars have been explored. Even Mass Effect FTL drive is slow relative to the volume of the galaxy. Empty space and systems without suitable drive discharge sites are barriers to exploration. Only the mass relays allow ships to jump hundreds of light years in an instant, the key to expanding across an otherwise impassable galaxy. Whenever a new relay is activated, the destination system is rapidly developed. From that hub, FTL drive is used to expand to nearby star clusters. The result is a number of densely developed clusters, thinly spread across the vast expanse of space, connected by the mass relay network.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how big space is. Like I said, it's only 1%, and that's a pretty big amount of stuff. And because this world, the Mass Effect universe, doesn't have FTL without the help of the mass relays, you know, you can't just like Star Trek it where you can just go faster than light whenever you want, you know, although they use dilithium crystals or whatever it was. But yeah, in this world, they need those, and I assume there's so many areas of space that don't have the mass relays. Although they kind of talk about it in Andromeda, you know, which the concept for that game is very interesting. It's just, I wish like certain things about were implemented better, or maybe EA gave a bit more backing to it or something like that. But anyway, not the place for that. So anyway, Spectres?
Spectres are agents from the Office of Special Tactics and Reconnaissance, and answer only to the Citadel Council. They are elite military operatives, granted the authority to deal with threats to peace and stability in whatever way they deem necessary. They operate independently or in groups of 2 or 3. Some are empathetic peacekeepers, resolving disputes through diplomacy. Others are cold-blooded assassins, ruthlessly dispatching problem individuals. All get the job done one way or another, often operating outside the bounds of galactic law. The Spectres were founded after the Solarians joined the Council. For many years they operated in secrecy as backroom problem solvers. Only after the Krogan rebellions did their activities become publicized. Assignment of a Spectre is less contentious than a military deployment, but makes it clear that the Council is concerned about a situation.
What was I going to say? And yeah, the Turians became big after the Krogan rebellions, after saving the councils, but it's kind of the same as in this game when the humans became council members, depending if you save the council or not. So, although if you don't save the council, it's a bit more skeevious when you think about it. But okay, anyway, Humanity and Systems Alliance. The Alliance is the government and military of humanity beyond Sol, which is the our sun, what we call our sun.
The home world and capital of humanity is entering a new golden age. The resource wealth of a dozen settled colonies and 100 industrial outposts flows back to Earth, fueling great works of industry, commerce, and art. The great cities are greening as arcology skyscrapers and telecommuting allow more efficient use of land. Earth is still divided among nation-states, though all are affiliated beneath the overarching banner of the Systems Alliance. While every human enjoys a longer and better life than ever, the gap between rich and poor widens daily. Advanced nations have eliminated most genetic disease and pollution. Less fortunate regions have not progressed beyond 20th century technology and are often smog-choked, overpopulated slums. Sea levels have risen 2 meters in the last 200 years, and violent weather is common due to environmental damage inflicted during the late 21st century. The past few decades, however, have seen significant improvement due to recent technological advances.
Oh, it goes to show that even in the future, humanity still doesn't completely work together. They have like a loose little organization, but it's still like, we still have a rich stronger than poor, pollution, all this other stuff. And that's happening today with just the ocean levels rising and stuff like that. It's a mess. We don't get our act together, man. But that's a debate for that's a talk for another day.
Humanity's first contact with an alien race occurred in 2157. At that time, the Alliance allowed survey fleets to activate any dormant mass relays discovered, a practice considered dangerous and irresponsible by Council-aligned races. When a Turian patrol discovered a human fleet attempting to activate a relay, they attacked. One human vessel survived, retreating to the colony of Shanxi. The Turians followed, quickly defeating the local forces. Shanxi was occupied, the first and to date only human world to be conquered by an alien species. The Turians believed the handful of ships they defeated represented the bulk of human defenses, so they were unprepared when the Second Fleet, under Admiral Castany Drescher, launched a strong counteroffensive, evicting them from Shanxi. The Turians mobilized for full-scale war, drawing the attention of the rest of the galaxy. The Council quickly intervened, forcing a truce. Fortunately for humanity, the First Contact War was ended with a diplomatic solution.
So the Turians didn't even talk to, at least, obviously there's their side, our side, and the truth. But it sounds like, according to this, and this is supposed to be more of a historical looking, that they basically just attacked us as we were trying to activate a relay. Didn't even try to talk to us or say, hey, what are you doing? They're just like, hey, let's just fight you. So it looks like the Turians were a bit more aggressive. So, but yeah, luckily it didn't get any worse than that. So, and obviously Shanxi is where, Ashley Williams' grandfather surrendered to the, well, they were colonized, and then he surrendered to the alien forces, thus tarnishing her career until she survives later on, or until she dies, because that kind of exonerates her family with that. At least I think I might be spoiling things a little bit, but in the third game there's like a little extra detail I think it's also mentioned in the second game too, but in the second and third game, there's kind of little extra details about what happens via the sacrifice of either Kaiden or Ashley, depending on who it is. But anyway.
The Systems Alliance is an independent supranational government representing the interests of humanity as a whole. The Alliance is responsible for the governance and defense of all extrasolar colonies and stations. The Alliance grew out of the various national space programs as a matter of practicality. Sol's planets had been explored and exploited through piecemeal national efforts. The expense of colonizing entire new solar systems could not be met by any one country. With humans knowing that alien contact was inevitable, there was enough political will to jointly fund an international effort. Still, the Alliance was often disregarded by those on Earth until the First Contact War. While the national governments dithered and bickered over who should lead the effort to liberate Shanxi, the Alliance fleet struck decisively. Post-war public approval gave the Alliance the credibility to establish its own parliament and become the galactic face of humanity.
Of course, this only happens when a threat occurs. No one ever deems it worthy before that. It's like, oh, violence might occur. Let's set this up. Just be prepared. Nope, more reactiveness. That's what governments are. Nope, not proactive, reactive. I like the fact that it shows America and South America, but the other countries are just shoved into the back of the symbol there. Get out of here. No one cares about Europe, Africa, Asia. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Anyway, planets and locations. The Milky Way galaxy contains 200 to 400... Sorry, I should do this in Carl's singing voice. The Milky Way galaxy contains 200 to 400 billion stars, most of the hosted planets. I know that's not exactly his voice, so sue me.
Pharos is a habitable world in the Attican Beta Cluster. 2/3 of the habitable surface is covered with the ruins of a crumbling Prothean megatropolis. In the millennia since the Prothean extinction, the ruins have been repeatedly picked over by looters many times. Pharos was considered a poor prospect for colonization, as little open ground remains for agriculture. The only sizable freshwater sources are the poles, which are tapped by the decaying Prothean aqueduct systems. The dead cities, while in good condition considering their antiquity, are of uncertain stability. Ground level is congested by a dozen meters of fallen debris, and the air is fouled by dust. In 2178, the Human Exogeny Corporation announced its intention to place a permanent colony on Pharos to thoroughly explore the ruins. The pioneer settlement was placed on the upper levels of several intact skyscrapers, using the surviving Prothean aqueducts and rooftop hydroponic gardens to support the population.
And then they found the Thorian, which Exogeny was like, ooh boy, let's exploit this. And then it, ended up either destroying the colony based off Shepard's efforts, whether good or bad, depending. So,
like the ancient human city of Troy, Ilos is a world known only through second-hand sources. References to Ilos have been found at several other Prothean ruins, though direct study of the world is unlikely to occur. Ilos lies in a remote area of the Terminus systems, only accessible by the legendary Mu Relay. 4,000 years ago, the Mu Relay was knocked out of position by a supernova and lost. Since then, Ilos and its cluster have been inaccessible. Occasionally, a university will organize an expedition to chart a route to Ilos using conventional FTL drive. These never get beyond the planning stages due to the distance and danger. The journey could take years or decades, passing through the hostile Terminus systems and dozens of unexplored systems.
I think they talk about this, and I'll probably show it. I don't know if I'll show it in this episode or the next one, but Liara talks about wanting to visit this place after everything's done. I'm trying to remember. I think in the third game she does kind of send it. I think that there's a small little line of dialogue somewhere where she does try to find out about it, but either there's nothing there by the time she goes back or something. Maybe if we ever do the third game, we'll get to that. But anyway.
Noveria is a cool, rocky world with most of its hydrosphere locked up in massive glaciers. A privately chartered colony world, the planet is owned by the Noveria Development Corporation Holding Company. The NDC is funded by investment capital from 24 high-technology development firms and administrated by an executive board representing their interests. The investors built remote hot labs in isolated locations across Noveria's surface. These facilities are used for research too dangerous or controversial to be performed elsewhere, as Noveria is technically not part of Citadel space and therefore exempt from Council law. By special arrangement, Citadel's special tactics and reconnaissance agents have been granted extraterritorial privileges, but it remains to be seen how committed the Executive Board is to that principle. Given its unique situation, it is understandable that Noveria is often implicated in all manner of wild conspiracy theories.
Which most of them tend to be, you know how they say in games, any myths, rumors, or legends are always true, no matter what. And it gets destroyed, or its government completely gets modified depending on the actions of Shepard.
Vauldemare is a lush world located on the frontier of the Attican Traverse. Its vast seas and orbital position on the inner life zone have created a wide equatorial band of humid, tropical terrain. Only the political instability of the region has impeded efforts at colonization. Many times the Citadel has opened negotiations to settle Vauldemare with various criminal gangs and petty dictatorships in the nearby Terminus systems. All fell apart due to internal power shifts within the opposing parties. The Citadel has written off the colonization of Vauldemare as impossible without significant political change. The Terminus powers themselves are unlikely to ever settle Vauldemare. Most lack the resources to support settlement of a virgin world, finding it more expedient to steal from their neighbors than build for themselves.
Trying to remember, that kind of reminds me of like an insect race of some sort, but I can't recall off the top of my head, where they just steal from others and just use their resources. Like, you did all the work, now I'm coming in to take a bandit would or a pirate or something.
The Terminus systems are located on the far side of the Attican Traverse, beyond the space administered by the Citadel Council or claimed by the Human Systems Alliance. It is populated by a loose affiliation of minor species, united only in their refusal to acknowledge the political authority of the Council or adhere to the Citadel conventions. Their independence comes at a price. The Terminus is fraught with conflict. War among the various species is common, as governments and dictators constantly rise and fall. The region is a haven for illegal activities, particularly piracy and the slave trade. At least once a year, a fleet from the Terminus invades the nearby Attican Traverse. These attacks are typically small raids against poorly defended colonies. The Council rarely retaliates, as sending patrols into the Terminus systems could unify the disparate species against their common foe, triggering a long and costly war.
I guess after the Krogan rebellions, Arachni, and all this other stuff, they didn't want to mess with that type of stuff. Even though the Council's war machine is probably 10 times stronger than the Attican, Terminus systems, but you know what they say about a cornered rat and everything like that. So
there are between 200 and 400 billion stars in the galaxy, and less than 1% of them have ever been visited or had their systems properly surveyed. Humanity's early expansion into the Attican Traverse was haphazard, a desperate race to claim habitable planets where populations can be economically settled. Ignored in the wake of this land grab were thousands of less hospitable worlds, each potentially rich with industrial resources. The wealth of entire solar systems lies untapped, waiting for corporate survey teams or independent pioneers to discover and exploit them. However, this is not an easy task. In addition to the environmental hazards, the fact that uncharted worlds are largely ignored makes them popular bases for criminals, revolutionaries, cults, and others who wish to remain unnoticed by galactic society.
Well, in its space, you got plenty of room to do that in, so there you go. Ships and vehicles, the technology of space travel and surface mobility.
Faster-than-light drives use element zero cores to reduce the mass of the ship, allowing higher rates of acceleration. This effectively raises the speed of light within the mass effect field, allowing high-speed travel with negligible relativistic time dilation effects. Starships still require conventional thrusters, chemical rockets, commercial fusion torch, economy ion engine, or military anti-proton drive, in addition to the FTL drive core. With only a core, a ship has no motive power. The amount of ezo and power required for a drive increases exponentially to the mass being moved and the degree it is being lightened. Very massive ships or very high speeds are prohibitively expensive. If the field collapses while the ship is moving at faster than light speed, the effects are catastrophic. The ship is snapped back to sublight velocity, the enormous excess energy shed in the form of lethal Cherenkov radiation.
Ooh, wouldn't want to be involved in that now, would you?
Larger warships are generally classified in one of 4 weights. Frigates are small, fast ships used for scouting and screening of larger vessels. Frigates often operate in wolf-pack flotillas. Cruisers are middleweight combatants, faster than dreadnoughts and more heavily armed than frigates. Cruisers are the standard patrol unit and often lead frigate flotillas. Dreadnoughts are kilometer-long capital ships mounting heavy, long-range firepower. They are only deployed for the most vital missions. Carriers are dreadnought-sized vessels that also carry large numbers of fighters. Smaller vessels are almost exclusively used in a support role to the warships during combat. Fighters are one-man craft used to perform close-range attacks on enemy ships. Interceptors are one-man craft optimized for destroying opposing fighters.
Although I think we get something like this in the red section as well, but I think they're divvied up and go into more detail. But
the Normandy is a prototype starship developed by the Human Systems Alliance with the assistance of the Citadel Council. It is optimized for scouting and reconnaissance missions in unstable regions using state-of-the-art stealth technology. For most ships, the heat generated through standard operations is easily detectable against the absolute zero background of space. The Normandy, however, is able to temporarily sink this heat within the hull. Combined with refrigeration of the exterior hull, the ship can travel undetected for hours or drift passively for days of covert observation. This is not without risk. The stored heat must eventually be radiated, or it will build to levels capable of cooking the crew alive. Another component of the stealth system is the Normandy's revolutionary Tantalus drive, a Mass Effect core twice the standard size. The Tantalus drive generates mass concentrations that the Normandy falls into, allowing it to move without the use of heat-emitting thrusters.
And that's why it's awesome.
Sovereign is the flagship of the rogue Spectre's Saren. An enormous dreadnought larger than any other ship in any known fleet, it is crewed with both Geth and Krogan. At 2 kilometers long, its spinal-mounted main gun is likely capable of penetrating another dreadnought's kinetic barriers with a single shot. How Saren acquired this incredible warship is unknown. The prevailing opinion is that Sovereign is a Geth construct, while others believe it is a Prothean relic. Its design, however, hints at a more alien and mysterious origin. The attack on Eden Prime demonstrated Sovereign's ability to generate mass effect fields powerful enough to land on a planetary surface. This implies it has a massive Element Zero core and the ability to generate staggering amounts of power.
And of course, over the course of the game, we find out it is an actual living thing, living machine, alien species known as the Reapers. So, but this is, I think we get this one after we beat the Eden Prime scenario, if I recall.
Ship mobility dominates space combat. The primary objective is to align the mass accelerator along the bow with the opposing vessel's broadside. Battles typically play out as artillery duels, fought at ranges measured in thousands of kilometers, though assaults through defended mass relays often occur at knife fight ranges, as close as a few dozen kilometers. Most ship-to-ship engagements are skirmishes between patrol vessels of cruiser weight and below, with dreadnoughts and carriers only deployed in full-scale fleet actions. Battles in open space are short and often inconclusive, as the weaker opponent typically disengages. Once a ship enters FTL flight, the combat is effectively over. There are no sensors capable of tracking them or weapons capable of damaging them. The only way to guarantee an enemy will stand and fight is to attack a location they have a vested interest in, such as a settled world or a strategically important mass relay.
Well, it's nice to know that there's always a way of escape if you can get to FTL. Unlike, I'm surprised they didn't do anything later on where they had a device, maybe an extended, if they had kept making Mass Effect games, maybe they would have made a point where one of the big bads was going to be able to, like, target you during FTL or something crazy like that. I don't know. They never got that far, obviously, but anyway.
The Mako infantry fighting vehicle was designed for the System Alliance's frigates. Though the interior is cramped, an M35 is small enough to be carried in the cargo bay and easily deployed on virtually any world. With its turreted 155mm mass accelerator and coaxially mounted machine gun, the Mako can provide a fire team with weapon support as well as mobility. Since Alliance Marines may be required to fight on any world, the Mako is environmentally sealed and equipped with microthrusters for use on low-gravity planetoids. The Mako is powered by a sealed hydrogen-oxygen fuel cell and includes a small Element Zero core. While not large enough to nullify the vehicle's mass, the core can reduce it enough to be safely airdropped. When used in conjunction with thrusters, it also allows the Mako to extricate itself from difficult terrain.
Well, sort of, depending on how you can work the controls or if you're a master of them. But anyway, on to technology. The everyday piece of technology that supports the modern lifestyle.
Biotics is the ability of rare individuals to manipulate dark energy and create mass effect fields through the use of electrical impulses from the brain. Intense training and surgically implanted amplifiers are necessary for a biotic to produce mass effect fields powerful enough for practical use. The relative strength of biotic abilities varies greatly among species and with each individual. There are 3 branches of biotics. Telekinesis uses mass-lowering fields to levitate or impel objects. Mass-raising kinetic fields are used to block or pin objects. Spatial distortion uses rapidly shifting mass fields to shred objects. Most organic species are capable of developing biotic abilities, though there are risks involved. Biotics are the result of an in utero exposure to Element Zero. This usually causes fatal cancers in the victim, but in rare cases, it coalesces into nodules within the fetus's developing nervous system.
So basically, you could possibly, it's one of those like curse for power type of things where, if you get it, great, but if not, you could suffer horribly, or you could get it and still suffer horribly, kind of Kaiden's case to an extent.
An artificial intelligence is a self-aware computing system capable of learning and independent decision-making. Creation of a conscious AI requires adaptive code, a slow, expensive education, and a specialized quantum computer called a blue box. An AI cannot be transmitted across a communication channel or computer network. Without its blue box, an AI is no more than data files. Loading these files into a new blue box will create a new personality, as variations in the quantum hardware and runtime results create unpredictable variations. The Geth serve as a cautionary tale against the dangers of rogue AI, and in Citadel space, they are technically illegal. Advocacy groups argue, however, that an AI is a living, conscious entity, deserving the same rights as organics. They argue that continued use of the term artificial is institutionalized racism on the part of organic life. The term synthetic is considered the politically correct alternative.
Well, if whatever your thoughts on that are, we kind of get a solution in the third game to an extent without spoiling it. The last line of dialogue definitely is a lot of buzzwords, so I don't know how you feel about that, and I'm not going to go into detail. Let's just say you've heard this type of talk before, so whether it comes from a good place, but you know what I mean. Anyway.
A virtual intelligence is an advanced form of user interface software. VIs use a variety of methods to simulate natural conversation, including an audio interface and an avatar personality to interact with. Although a VI can provide a convincing emulation of sentience, they are not self-aware, nor can they learn or take independent action. VIs are used as operating systems on commercial and home computers. Minimal VI agents are also available. Agents are compact and specialized. Some serve as personal secretaries, filtering calls and scheduling meetings based on user-defined priorities. Others are advanced search engines, propagating themselves across the extranet to collate user-requested data. Commercial VIs in a variety of stock personalities are available at any software retailer. Boutique firms and hobbyists also build unique VIs to personal specification. Although software emulation of living personalities is illegal, reconstructions of famous historical figures are common.
You know, they actually, interesting that they talk about this. They actually bring up, in the second game, they actually bring up this a few times, which is kind of funny. And this also reminds me of an episode of Futurama where they had those AI bodies and they were downloading people's, famous people into the bodies. Are you Loosely Lou? Sure.
When subjected to an electrical current, the rare material dubbed Element Zero, or EZO, emits a dark energy field that raises or lowers the mass of all objects within it. This mass effect is used in countless ways, from generating artificial gravity to manufacturing high-strength construction materials. It is most prominently used to enable faster-than-light space travel. EZO is generated when solid matter, such as a planet, is affected by the energy of a star going supernova. The material is common in the asteroid debris that orbits neutron stars and pulsars. These are dangerous places to mine, requiring extensive use of robotics, telepresence, and shielding to survive the incredible radiation from the dead star. Only a few major corporations can afford the setup costs required to work these primary sources. Humanity discovered refined Element Zero at the Prothean Research Station on Mars, allowing them to create mass effect fields and develop FTL travel.
Yeah, you want something epic? Try mining a dead star. Holy cow.
Element Zero can increase or decrease the mass of a volume of space-time when subjected to an electrical current. With a positive current, mass is increased. With a negative current, mass is decreased. The stronger the current, the greater the magnitude of the dark energy mass effect. In space, low-mass fields allow FTL travel and inexpensive surface-to-orbit transit. High-mass fields create artificial gravity and push space debris away from vessels. In manufacturing, low-mass fields permit the creation of evenly blended alloys, while high-mass compaction creates dense, sturdy construction materials. The military makes extensive use of mobility-enhancing technologies, with Mass Effect utilizing fighting vehicles standard frontline issue in most military forces. Mass Effect fields are also essential in the creation of kinetic barriers or shields to protect against enemy fire.
Mass Effect, roll credits. Although I should have said that during the Element Zero stuff, but...
Mass relays are feats of Prothean engineering advanced far beyond the technology of any living species. They are enormous structures scattered throughout the stars and can create corridors of virtually mass-free space, allowing instantaneous transit between locations separated by years or even centuries of travel using conventional FTL drives. Primary mass relays can propel ships thousands of light years, often from one spiral arm of the galaxy to another. However, they have fixed one-to-one connections. A primary relay connects to one other primary relay and nowhere else. Secondary relays can only propel ships across a few hundred light years. However, they are omnidirectional. A secondary relay can send a ship to any other relay within its limited range. There are many dormant primary relays whose corresponding twins have not yet been located. These are left inactive until their partner is charted, as established civilizations are unwilling to blindly open a passage that might connect them to a hostile species.
Which is why, like, the whole point of finding the Mu relay and the coordinates, because they didn't want to just jump into, like, who knows where, into an asteroid path or something like that. Interesting enough, that comes up again in the second game.
Omni-tools are handheld devices that combine a computer microframe, sensor analysis pack, and manufacturing fabricator. Versatile and reliable, an Omni-tool can be used to analyze and adjust the functionality of most standard equipment, including weapons and armor, from a distance. The fabrication module can rapidly assemble small three-dimensional objects from common reusable industrial plastics, ceramics, and light alloys. This allows for field repairs and modifications to most standard items, as well as the reuse of salvaged equipment. Omni-tools are standard issue for soldiers and first-in colonists.
Or people who can just find them or make them themselves. Omni-tools have a lot of interest, or are shown obviously used a lot in this game, but they're even shown, even in the later games, they're even shown to be used more often, which, like I said, the second and third game will go into more detail about that. But anyway, on to finally weapons, armor, and equipment. Advances in technology have made individual soldiers more dangerous and survivable than ever before.
Combat hard suits use a dual-layer system to protect the wearer. The inner layer consists of fabric armor with kinetic padding. Areas that don't need to be flexible, such as the chest or shins, are reinforced with sheets of lightweight, ablative ceramic. The outer layer consists of automatically generated kinetic barriers. Objects traveling above a certain speed will trigger the barrier's reflex system and be deflected, provided there is enough energy left in the shield's power cell. Armored hard suits are sealable to protect the wearer from extremes of temperature and atmosphere. Standard equipment includes an onboard mini-frame and a communications, navigation, and sensing suite. The mini-frame is designed to accept and display data from a weapon's smart targeting system to make it easier to locate and eliminate enemies.
Just hope you're not claustrophobic if you have to wear body armor, but I guess at that point you might not be in the army at that juncture. But
kinetic barriers, more commonly called shields, provide protection against most mass accelerator weapons. Whether on a starship or a soldier's suit of armor, the basic principle remains the same. Kinetic barriers are repulsive mass effect fields, projected from tiny emitters. These shields safely deflect small objects traveling at rapid velocities. This affords protection from bullets and other dangerous projectiles, but still allows the user to sit down without knocking away their chair. The shielding afforded by kinetic barriers does not protect against extremes of temperature, toxins, or radiation.
well, I'm glad we're able to sit down in a chair with these things. I don't know how I'd live.
A mass accelerator propels a solid metal slug using precisely controlled electromagnetic attraction and repulsion. The slug is designed to squash or shatter on impact, increasing the energy it transfers to the target. If this were not the case, it would simply punch a hole right through, doing minimal damage. Accelerator design was revolutionized by Element Zero. A slug lightened by a mass effect field can be accelerated to greater speeds, permitting projectile velocities that were previously unattainable. If accelerated to a high enough velocity, a simple paint chip can impact with the same destructive force as a nuclear weapon. However, mass accelerators produce recoil equal to their impact energy. This is mitigated somewhat by the mass effect fields that rounds are suspended within. But weapon recoil is still the prime limiting factor on slug velocity.
Now that'd be a tale. The simple paint chip of doom!
Medigel is a common medicinal salve used by paramedics, EMTs, and military personnel. It combines several useful applications: a local anesthetic, disinfectant, and clotting agent all in one. Once applied, the gel is designed to grip tight to flesh until subjected to a frequency of ultrasound. It is sealable against liquids, most notably blood, as well as contaminants and gases. The gel is a genetically engineered bioplasm created by the CERTA Foundation, a medical technology megacorp based on Earth. Technically, Medigel violates Council laws against genetic engineering, but to date, it has proved far too useful to ban.
Of course, like most laws, if the item is useful, then technically they'll just wave it aside, though, as if the law is not important. At that point, maybe you need to adjust the law. But anyway.
All modern infantry weapons, from pistols to assault rifles, use micro-scaled mass accelerator technology. Projectiles consist of tiny metal slugs suspended within a mass-reducing field, accelerated by magnetic force to speeds that inflict kinetic damage. The ammo magazine is a simple block of metal. The gun's internal computer calculates the mass needed to reach the target based on distance, gravity, and atmospheric pressure, then shears off an appropriate-sized slug from the block. A single block can supply thousands of rounds, making ammo a non-issue during any engagement. Top-line weapons also feature smart targeting that allows them to correct for weather and environment. Firing on a target in a howling gale feels the same as it does on a calm day at the practice range. Smart targeting does not mean a bullet will automatically find the mark every time the trigger is pulled. It only makes it easier for the marksman to aim.
Yeah. Now remember this, like this section for the sequels. Just keep that in mind, that this game is supposed to designate and place certain like ideas, concepts into the world to make it set it up for future endeavors. You know, not to say much about the second game and third game, just because I like those to an extent, but let's just say those games tend to like do a bit of lore hacking, or lore, not destroying, but lore changing to convenience them instead of sticking with like what's there. I mean, there is a line reading here that
to assault rifles,
you know, supports some things. But anyway, sorry about that. So, all right, that's it for the Codex. Everything that can be found in the game has been read here, and all the secondary stuff that I read in the previous episode, which I think I missed like one or two, but I showed off what those were in those recurring episodes, which were in Vauldemare. If you don't have the decryption ability, you miss out on a couple, but although there might be a way to get them somewhere, but I've forgotten, it's been so long. But anyway, thanks for listening to the dulcet tones of the narrator, and we'll leave it there. So on the next bonus episode of Mass Effect, we'll do a little bit more quote farming. Some of the things I missed, it probably won't be as long. And then we'll finally show off the special bonus disc that came with the game, since I don't even know if anyone's ever shown that or uploaded it, and I thought it'd be a unique experience to go over that. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.